by saying I'm not an expert in this field, so, I'm definitely not the person who should be, giving interviews about this topic, because I'm not in sports or, on the International Olympic Committee. But this is what I know. This is what I've read and what I've learned in the past year or so. This whole idea is that you said that they go in and they crush it. From what I've read and learned, that's not actually the case most of the time. So I'm not, again, you'd have to go and research that and find out, do they all crush it? From what I know, they don't. But here's what I do know. Again, I always go back to the research. We also have decades of research on trans athletes. And I do know that ever since, I think, I'm not sure if this data is correct, but 2003, the International Olympic Committee created rules that allow transgender athletes to compete, and then the NCAA has been doing it since, I don't know, maybe about almost a decade now. There are very strict rules, very strict guidelines about which transgender athletes can compete and when they can compete. And I know that that's after a certain period of time of HRT, hormone replacement therapy, which I think you have to have either 6 or 12 months, I can't remember. And then there are a bunch of other rules and guidelines, to make sure that everything is done correctly and based on the research. And what the research shows us is that after a certain period of hormone replacement therapy, any kind of advantage, physical advantage that a trans athlete might have before they transitioned is wiped away. So, people are always scared about trans women. Well, after being on hormone replacement therapy for 6 months or a year or whatever it is, on average, all the statistics show that whatever muscle mass or body mass or whatever advantages they had, they get wiped away. So we also know that since trans athletes have been allowed to compete in the Olympics, think about it, it's been almost 20 years now. I don't even know how many, if any, have qualified, let alone have won medal. I don't think anybody's won a medal, but think about how many years they've had to do this whole trick of fooling everybody, and all of a sudden all these muscular trans women can go and crush it. Well, they haven't. So why is that? So question these kinds of myths and fear-mongering sort of campaigns about athletes, because we need to look at the reality of things, and also understand that sports are also a human right and a civil right, and all children, including trans children, have the right to compete in sports. So think about it that way and do some research.